The Obelisk is a simple man that does simple things. Every time you deal damage to an enemy, you inflict them with a stack called Crush. Crush can stack up to 3 times, and when it reaches max stacks, it deals damage to that target, and then fades away. That's it. You just deal a little bit of bonus damage every time you attack the same enemy 3 times. An important thing to mention about the Obelisk Crush stacks are that they scale with physical power, and they are the only stacks in the game that remain on a boss when that boss phases. You can apply Crush stacks to them even when the boss is invulnerable, and pop those stacks when they come out of it. It's just a little bit of micro that you can do to do a little bit more damage, because that's really the major weakness of this aspect. They have very low single target damage. Crush is a nice bonus, but that comes at the cost of low damage dealing abilities compared to the other aspects. Apart from that, their abilities cost a lot and have a long cooldown, so most of the time you're just going to be using your repeatable skill. All of the Obelisk bindings are very cool and thematic. It's all about throwing your shield around and slapping your enemies with it.
Briefcase and got him some. Oh my god! Come on!
Their first ability is called Ironclap, and it hits all enemies in a small semicircle. It deals a very low amount of damage and grants you 1 shield. Use this skill to apply Crush stacks and grant yourself as many shields as you need to avoid taking too much damage. Shield Bash is a movement skill that costs 2 will and deals a good amount of damage. It moves you a short distance, but has a pretty large area of effect, so you can easily hit multiple enemies. Their last skill is called Seismic Slam, and this skill solves the entire aspect's limited range. It deals damage to all enemies for a moderate amount of damage. You can use this skill to finish off a load of crap or even taunt all enemies for your allies. The ascensions for the Obelisk pull you into a few different directions. You could gain scaling damage, more shields, you can gain spikes, apply more stacks of Crush, and there's an ascension that lets you do magic damage. The scaling damage basically guarantees you're going to kill everything eventually, even though you start with low damage skills. The shield build grants you more shield generation and scaling damage per shield you have. The spiked build lets you gain spiked and deal damage per stack. The Crush build lets you deal more burst damage by proccing those stacks, and the magic ascension is limited to Avalanche. This ascension converts the skill to a magic one and applies some frostbite. I would personally only take this skill if you already have Cone of Frost. The Obelisk wants to be in the fray. You can easily deal damage to any of the enemies that circle around you because of the design of their skills. Your easy access to shields means you can ignore a lot of damage most other aspects could not. And the stacks this aspect applies are just a nice bonus to have. You should avoid standing in too many circles. You can't ignore everything. I'd put the Obelisk in the A tier with these other aspects. This is basically as close to a tank as you can get in this game. It has good area damage, and that is important for how many enemies this game throws at you at higher difficulties. This aspect can deal with that, whilst also gaining shields and scaling the damage they do.